Okay, so now when we talk about this whole migration, the whole illegal migration and all this issue uh, between India and Bangladesh, one has to look at the history of this issue first to understand what is the issue and what is the way forward. Okay, to this issue of illegal migration and how does it influence the India-Bangladesh relationship. Actually, firstly, if you look historically, 1947 onwards, there is a set of refugees came to India in 1947-1948. When? During the partition period, right? During the partition period, a number of these refugees came to India. The refugees came to India primarily because of the partition time, one set of people going to the other side, etc. As the partition happened, and there are religious riots also, etc. And a refugee crisis had developed both on the western side of the border and the eastern side. So a large number of refugees uh, came to India and they settled where? They settled in the Bengal region or even in the Assam region. Okay, in the Bengal and the Assam region. Then another wave of refugees, almost 10 million refugees came during the 1971 war. And the refugees from Bangladesh who were escaping persecution, primarily even a large number of Hindus, kept coming between 1947 to 1971 or 24th March 1971. It is after 24th March 1971 that after 24th March 1971 that 10 million refugees came during the 1971 war, who were largely, uh, the Awami League, the League supporters and the Bangladeshi citizens. So they came during 1971 war, escaping from the persecution launched by the Pakistani army. Escaping persecution launched by the Pakistan army. Uh, and these 10 million refugees came, you know, uh, during this period. So it is when these 10 million refugees came, they were largely settled in refugee camps in Assam, Bengal, Mizoram, etc., Tripura also, etc. regions. Now, once the war ended, once the war ended in 1971, between 1971 to 1973, once the war ended in 1971 and the Awami League came to power, where? In Bangladesh, between 1971 to 1973, uh, almost uh, 7.5 million refugees. Almost 7.5 million refugees returned. Almost 7.5 million refugees, they returned to whom? And see, the point is, these refugees were kept in refugee camps. These refugees were kept in refugee camps. They were given identity cards, etc., everything. And 7.5 million returned eventually. And eventually, almost a large number of the remaining 2.5 million refugees also returned. Not all, but a large number of them also returned. So the refugee problem should have ended by now in 1973, 1974. However, it soon got intermixed with the other issue, and that is the issue of illegal migration. It got intermixed with another issue, and that is the issue of illegal migration. Now, what is happening in this issue of illegal migration? What is happening in this issue of illegal migration is this. What is happening in this issue of illegal migration is this, that between that 1974 onwards, and even before that, but more so after 1974 onwards also, though the refugee issue is coming to a largely a solution, the illegal migration issue is such emerged, in the sense that a large number of, and the number, estimate of this number has widely varied, a large number of Bangladeshi migrants came to what? India. A large number of Bangladeshi migrants came to India looking for what? A large number of Bangladeshi migrants came to India looking for what? Employment opportunities. Often what? Through illegal migration. Particularly in Northeast, and that too in Assam, in the border districts of Assam. Particularly in the border districts of Assam. Okay. Now, particularly in the border districts of Assam. So this is something which is largely, leading to a problem of a large number of migrants coming here. And why does it become a problem? That we'll see. In the sense that between 1975 or 1975 and 1983, what? Protests between 1975 and 1983, protests, domestic protests broke out in Assam against the influx of what? Influx of domestic protests broke out in Assam against the influx of migrants or illegal migrants from of migrants or illegal migrants which was and which led to speculation of fears of what? An ethnic or demographic what? Inversion in Assam. What does this mean? What this means is that the popular sentiment was gaining ground in Assam, and that was that the influx of a large number of these migrants will reduce the Assamese speaking population in Assam to a minority. The Assamese population is partly ethnically and definitely linguistically different from the Bengali speaking population, whether coming from West Bengal on Indian side of the border or from Bangladesh. So there was this fear of ethnic or demographic inversion in Assam, and these protests were led by whom? The All Assam Student Union. Initially these protests were non-violent, eventually they also became violent. Okay. These protests were led by All Assam Student Union and eventually turned violent. Following which, in 1984 there is the accord. Which accord? The Rajiv Gandhi Accord. Rajiv Gandhi in 1984-85, after the death of Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi signed an accord and said that to address concerns of Assam, to address concerns in Assam, and said that 24th March 1971 would be what? The cutoff date. Those who came before 24th March 1971 will be the cutoff date, and the refugees who came before this date would be granted citizenship. Okay, and those who are those who came after this will be termed as whom? Illegal migrants, and they will be, and they will not be granted citizenship, etc. Okay. And not those who came when? Later, after 24th March 1971. So that's something that they said as the cutoff date. Now, that's one thing. Okay. Now, the next, so that was agreed upon as the cutoff date. However, though this was happening as a result of negotiations, a parallel set of developments had been going on the ground as well since the 1970s, which continued in the 1980s and in the 1990s. For almost 3 decades, what? Despite the Assam Accord, this Rajiv Gandhi Accord is also called as the Assam Accord. Despite the Assam Accord, despite the Assam Accord, illegal migration continued into Assam, Tripura, and adjoining border states. Illegal migration continued. And these illegal migration and these illegal migrants, what did they do? These illegal migrants settled down. These illegal migrants settled down in these areas, obtained what? Ration card. Voter ID card. Jobs, etc. So they largely settled down in this region, obtained ration card, voter ID card. Sir, also which card? Aadhaar card. Okay. Out of these cards, the easiest card to get is Aadhaar. Aadhaar is a card. आप अपने कुत्ते का भी बनवा सकते हैं आधार कार्ड. कुछ भी हो सकता है. कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है. It's so easy. Even animals can get Aadhaar card. It is that easy. What documentation is required, sir? No documentation is required. Nobody is coming to your house to check whether the address that you mentioned on your Aadhaar card is actually your address or not. कुछ नहीं है. एक पहले एक फेक डॉक्यूमेंट बनवाइए, उसके ऊपर सारे फेक डॉक्यूमेंट बनवाना बहुत ही आसान है इंडिया में. Okay, that is there. So basically, what is important is that these illegal migrants who settle down in this region, they are getting. These illegal migrants who are settling down in this region are getting the voter ID cards. As they're getting the voter ID cards, what is happening? That they also have voting rights. And, the governments that have ruled in Assam, historically, for a major period of time, including the Congress government, which ruled in Assam, from time to time, never really cracked down on these illegal migrants. And in fact, a number of them had voting cards and they became themselves voters in the region. So to that extent, you see that over a period of time, these migrants are also getting what? Voting rights or political rights. And thus, they are becoming a sort of a vote bank also. For whom? For the political class. And that also became a reason why the political class really did not crack down upon whom? The migrants. Now, in 1990, and this led to a number of riots also from time to time, in the sense that, many a number of Assam-based groups, protest groups said that this is a clear violation of the Assam Accord of 1984, that these migrants are coming, they continue to come, settle down, voter ID cards, etc. It's a clear violation of the Assam Accord. And there were repeated riots also which broke out in Assam, in the Kokrajhar region, many other border regions of Assam with Bangladesh. And in 1998, the governor of Assam submitted a report that's called the Sinha Report. That's called the Sinha Report and pointed out that there are a large number of unregistered, or there are a large number of illegal, migrants in Assam. And the estimate said that it was somewhere between 2 million, 1 to 2 million to 15 million. Sir, they're giving a range of roughly around 1 or 2 million to 15 million. Sir, that's some range. 15 times highest rough range you are saying is, may I ask you how many marks are you expecting? You know, in the prelims examination, you say anywhere between 50 to 150 out of 200. That's not a range. That's like a wild guess. When they're guessing, when they're saying that this is the number of illegal migrants is between 1 to 15 million, that's too big a range. That indirectly tells you what? We don't know the exact number of illegal migrants. And herein where your NRC pictures in. The NRC pictures in into this scenario that they're saying that the NRC or the National Register of Citizens has to be updated, and those in Assam who can show the proof that they were residents of Assam on or before 24th March 1971, their name will be retained in the citizenship register, whereas those who cannot give a proof that they or their ancestors were residents before 24th March 1971, their names will be struck off. Right? And that process is currently ongoing, etc. Right? So that's there, and it's a move supported by the BJP government at the center also. अब इसमें citizenship amendment bill दूसरा है, वो controversy में हम नहीं जा रहे हैं. The NRC issue and the citizenship amendment issue, bill issue, are interrelated but partly different issues. Now that's there, you know, that's the point. The question is that currently, now what is this issue? The issue is about illegal migration. Now how do you best handle this issue? You know, the NRC comes into this picture. Okay, chaliye, you identified. Roughly they said that there, in the initial draft they said there are 40 lakh illegal migrants or 4 million. And the NRC, when documentation was being done, they said that roughly 4 million are there in the draft. It will be updated, etc., etc. Suppose you identify 1 million people as illegal refugees, okay, who are not Indian citizens. Now what is to be done with them? Now these people are kept in a deportation, or these people are to be kept in a deportation camp. Now India, now comes the tricky question. What do you do with this 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 5 lakh, 10 lakh people? Deport them or send them back to their original country. Which is their country? Bangladesh. But Bangladesh says there are no illegal migrants. That Bangladesh says that there are no illegal migrants going from Bangladesh into India. Now what happens in this scenario? This is very difficult to say. What happens once we have identified these illegal migrants? If Bangladesh refuses to accept them, India refuses to keep them, where do we send them? To Mars? We don't have an easy answer for this question. As the NRC exercise was going on in Assam in 2018, elections were also due in Bangladesh. And before the Bangladeshi elections, India had given a formal assurance at the Prime Ministerial and the Foreign Minister level that India does not intend to deport anybody to whom? Bangladesh. Okay. Because if India tries to deport to Bangladesh, but Bangladesh argues that, you know, there are no illegal migrants coming from Bangladesh to India, it can become a source of tension for the India-Bangladesh relationship. It can cause domestic friction, okay, that is, or it can cause friction between India-Bangladesh relationship. So India gave this assurance at the highest level that we are not going to deport them. What are we going to do with them once we identify them? There are no easy answers for this question, okay. So, but obviously identifying them is likely to lead to some political gains for the ruling party BJP in Assam, etc. So that's another issue, but this is another issue. Now in this backdrop, what is the way forward for this illegal migration issue? What is being done and what is the way forward for this illegal migration issue? Well, the answer is, firstly, dekhiye. Now when we talk about the way forward to tackle the illegal migration issue, the way forward to tackle the illegal migration issue when we talk about the way forward to tackle the illegal migration issue, firstly, what India has been carrying out the fencing of border with whom? Bangladesh, unilaterally. Bangladesh has not been erecting fences, only India has been erecting fences, okay, unilaterally. Bangladesh doesn't support the move also of erecting fences, but India has nonetheless been doing so. This has generated unilaterally since 2000. So India has been erecting fences since 2000 to 2003 period. That is when India started erecting these fences. Now India has been doing this unilaterally. This has caused some friction between India and Bangladesh relations in the past. At the same point of time, so India has been carrying out these fencing of the border issues. Now since 2002 to 2003, since 2000 to 2003 period. At the same point of time, India so has fenced roughly 3,000 out of the, India has already fenced roughly 3,000 out of the 4,000 kilometers of the border it shares with whom? It shares with Bangladesh. 3,000 out of the 4,000 kilometers border that it shares with Bangladesh, India has already fenced it. That's one thing. Then what is the next thing, sir? India, BSF mans this border. So the BSF, the Border Security Force, right? BSF has increased border surveillance. BSF has increased border surveillance. How? Has increased border surveillance where it has increased the number of border outposts. Okay. To carry out surveillance. Earlier, for example, so the whole border can never be fenced between India and Bangladesh. One reason is what? The rivers. Because the rivers flow, you can't fence the rivers, obviously, right? So there are rivers which are there, so the border can never be completely fenced. At the same point, because the borders can never be completely fenced, you will never be able to basically solve this problem of illegal migration merely by fencing. Okay, if the issue of illegal migration could be solved merely by fencing, then we would have just simply fenced the whole border and that would have solved the problem. That's not possible, partly because of geographical reasons, the fencing of the border. Other thing is, even where borders have been fenced, sir, what can happen? People can come and cut the border, cut the fence and go to the other side. See, people who are looking for jobs, for a livelihood, if they want to migrate, they can always cut the fences and go. That is why Trump is saying we'll make the wall, not fence, right? So people can always cut the fences and go. Okay. Also, this illegal migration issue also creates a certain other challenges for India that we'll come to in a minute. So they can always cut the fences and they can go to the other side, or they can escape from where fences are not there. So India has been increasing border surveillance. Earlier, for example, there were a border outpost, say, at every 20 kilometers. So it's not that one guard is standing every 100 meters on India-Bangladesh border. Arey sir, 4,000 kilometer long border, how many guards will stand? That's not possible, right? So border outposts were earlier say at a distance of 25 or 30 kilometers. So now they're saying that we'll increase the number of border outposts. So if not at 30 kilometers, then probably at 10 kilometers each or 15 kilometers each, there will be a border outpost from where the border would be monitored. Okay, that is what would be the idea. So BSF has been increasing this border surveillance and outpost, and fencing has been going on. One major reason also why we need to tackle the issue of illegal migration is because these illegal migrants also pose, apart from influencing the demographic composition of India's northeast, etc., they also may pose a what? Security challenge. Kyun bhai? You are, because they may be doing what? Because these illegal migrants, on the way, coming or on the way, coming to India or going from India, what would they do? Dekhiye kya hota hai? Where do these migrants come from? A number of them do circular migration also. What is circular migration? Simple thing, that in Bangladesh, they are engaged in agriculture. So during the harvest season, what are they? Where are they? They are in Bangladesh doing the harvest. Okay, or during the cropping season, they are there to cut the crops. Once the cropping season is gone, they are free. So they look for employment, so they cross the border and come to India and work during the off season in the construction sector. Once they've done the work in the construction sector, they'll return back to Bangladesh again for the cropping season. So circular migration. Jaisa hota hai, abhi aisa hota hai, right? That there is a farmer who's working in Bihar. Cropping season mein he is in Bihar. Rest of the season he is in Delhi driving Ola. You get it? So that's also circular migration, or looking for construction jobs in Delhi. So circular migration is there within India also, and it happens across the Indian Bangladesh border also. So kya hua? That what are you doing is that what can always happen is what? Narco trafficking. These fellows, when they come from Bangladesh to India, उन्होंने बोला 1 kilo गांजा भी लेके चलो साथ, right? We'll sell that off also. Or the opposite, buy narcotics from India and sell it in Bangladesh. So narco trafficking goes both ways, that ways. Okay. And if you remember, there is the golden triangle in this region, right? We say golden triangle and golden crescent. Yes, no? Already taught? No? If not taught, then we'll teach. What is there? So, before you get offended, okay. So, we say that the golden crescent is where? Afghanistan, Pakistan and Punjab. Their side of Punjab as well as the Indian side of Punjab. That's the, the golden crescent. And the golden triangle is between Myanmar, India and Bangladesh. Okay, that's where the golden triangle is. Ye golden kya hai isme? Ganja, sir, ganja. They are the world's biggest producer of opium. These two areas produce more than 90% of the opium in the world. And also one of the highest and best quality of opium is produced in these two areas. The Afghan Taliban finances its whole military offenses largely through the opium that it cultivates. It's the opium capital of the world. Okay, that's there. So you see a lot of narco trafficking also happens along the porous India-Bangladesh border. So that's there. So it poses a security challenge, primarily because of narco trafficking, not just narco trafficking, sir, human trafficking for prostitution, etc. So there is human trafficking also, there is narco trafficking also. Then what is there? Animal trafficking also. अभी इसको animal trafficking or what? Illegal trade in animals, etc. See, in Bangladesh there are a huge number of slaughterhouses and leather industries. So what happens is that a large amount of cattle is sold illegally, okay, from Indian side to the Bangladeshi side, and these cattle is sold, and because India में तो cattle मारना is dangerous, it can lead to instant death, okay. Humans में ऐसा नहीं है, but if you kill cattle it can lead to, sir, instant death. So a large number of this cattle is also illegally exported to Bangladesh. They have leather industries, so these cattle is slaughtered there, their skin is used for leather purposes, and the meat is also sold out, so they get a better price. Whom? Indian farmers get a better price if they sell their old cattle to whom? Bangladesh. Selling it in India these days is anyways risky, okay, and even then, even if they sell, they will not get the good price that they get in selling it to Bangladesh. So there is a lot of illegal animal trade also, you know, which happens along this border. So some of this can pose what? And also it poses a security challenge. Why? Because terror groups or insurgent groups can sneak into or out across these borders. So all of this poses a security challenge also. Now, so a part of this problem, you know, is a security challenge, and that does require increasing border surveillance, okay. But merely border surveillance alone is not the answer. Merely border surveillance alone is not the answer. And why do we say that? That merely border surveillance is not the answer? We say that merely border surveillance is not the answer merely border surveillance is not the answer. Rather, other things also need to be done. First thing is what? There is a need to grant what? Work permits for short durations, say 6 month or 1 year period, there is a need to grant work permits for short duration, say 6 month to 1 year period, to workers coming from Bangladesh. See, the first thing is, the aim is not to stop migration from Bangladesh. Sir, that will never stop. Mr. Trump may erect the wall that he wants to, but migration will not stop from what? Mexico. क्या होगा? People will dig tunnels. अरे जमीन खोद के चले जाएंगे, टनल बना के उस तरफ. What is there? Those people who are looking for jobs can also do this, and those who want to move drugs, they too can totally do this. Okay. Punjab gets a lot of illegal drugs from the Pakistani side of border or not? अरे वो आता है, वो हवा में से आएगा, फेंक के आएंगे, ड्रोन से दे देंगे, नीचे से, हर तरह के तरीके हैं. You just can't, erect fences and expect that that will solve the problem. So the need is not to try and stop migration. The need is to do what? Regularize and legalize migration. Why? Because when you grant them work permits for short duration to periods, for short duration periods to workers coming from Bangladesh, it's a win-win for all. Firstly, these people will have to give a valid proof of identification, where they are going to work, all of that, right? And this will do what? This will allow India to keep a track of number of people working in India who are from Bangladesh. How many are staying for the term that they have been granted the visa, and how many have overstayed. Identify them at a later stage and deport them. Once it is a legal, documented migration, then it becomes easy for us to deport also if required. Okay. If it is undocumented, then it would become difficult to deport also. So legalizing or regularizing migration by granting them work permits, that is what happens. When Indian workers go to work in US, they go on a valid work visa. That's what a regularized migration is. Right? That is what a legal migration is. So if they do something hunky dory there, okay, you went on a student visa but you started working, so you can be deported back to India because you are violating the visa rules, and that's a completely legal procedure, right? It's also a win-win for whom? Bangladeshi workers also. Why, sir? See, Bangladeshi workers who are migrants come to work in the construction sector in India's northeast in large numbers because they provide what? Cheap labor. Now what happens is there's some construction mishap at a construction site, say, okay, in Assam, and 5 workers die. Now if these 5 workers die, who are they? Are they Indian citizens? No. Are they Bangladeshi citizens? Bangladesh says no. Then where did they prakto? Where did they appear from? Obviously not from heaven. But these workers, if they suffer any mishap, who is going to look after their welfare? Neither the Indian government nor the Bangladeshi government. So it is in the interest of workers also to obtain what? A legal permit to work in India, provided it is easy to obtain such a legal permit, so that if there is any mishap also, they also receive what? Compensation, or they have a right to recourse. Okay. So in the sense that there is a need to grant work permits to for short duration period to workers coming from Bangladesh. Just a second. Coming from Bangladesh, which would allow to regularize, identify and track the migrants working in India. Okay, that's there. So there's a need to grant work permits and make it easier for them to obtain work permit. If you say that was a construction worker, in Bangladesh, if they want a work permit, say they are living in the border areas along with India. See, kya hai? Suppose you are living in a border village in Bangladesh. You can do agriculture during the agriculture season and lean season. Go and walk on the other side of the border. Chale gaye aap India mein. Karay naukri 6 mahina. And you come back. Right? That's there. But here is the problem. That suppose if this individual is living in the border village, he wants to go and work in India for 6 months. Then if he has to go from the border village in Bangladesh first to Dhaka to obtain a work permit, pay 3,000 rupees there to obtain a work permit, and then go to work in India, he's paying 1 month's salary only to go and obtain a work visa. Will he ever go? No. Sir, at the border only you create what? वीजा इशूइंग सेंटर और वर्क परमिट इशूइंग सेंटर, वहीं जाओ, चलते चलते एक दिन में यू ऑब्टेन योर वर्क परमिट एंड नेक्स्ट डे यू गो into India, work for 6 months and then come back. The point is that India, देखिए आप बताइए कितनी countries आप जानते हैं which have erected fences between each other? There are very few countries in the world, sir, who are erecting fences between each other. Why? Because it makes no sense. It is difficult to regulate, monitor, expensive, and it never solves the problem completely. So India may have erected a certain set of fences with its neighbors under certain circumstances, but merely fencing alone is not the solution. So to that extent, you regularize the what? Regularize the migration, and also to tackle what? The security elements, you increase the surveillance. So merely increasing border surveillance is not the answer, and you need to do these things, and that is something that is needed. Only then this issue can be handled. Okay, that is there. And so this is something that you need to note from your examination point of view, that the border issue will have to be managed largely by India in cooperation with whom? Bangladesh. So the way forward is that New Delhi and Dhaka both need to show more maturity in handling the question of illegal migration. Need to show more maturity in handling the question of illegal migration and cooperate to tackle the security threats that emanate from porous borders and regularize the migration process by adopting a simplified work permit regime. And lastly, one more thing that you can add here, and by adopting a simplified work permit regime. And one of the last things is that you increase the number of border hearts for doing trade. In the sense, border hearts, okay, for doing trade. In the sense that what do is that you create integrated checkposts for screening goods, and also make designated border trading positions where traders from both sides can come and do trade. Okay, that is something which will also give what? When legal trade happens, when illegal trade happens, or what happens? That both the countries also lose revenue. Why? Because if there is a legal trade route, then there will be a certain amount of tax which will be gained by both the sides from taxing this trade. When there is illegal trade, it is also untaxed trade. So one of the last things also that can be done is that increase the number of border trading hearts along the India-Bangladesh border to regularize the trade. I hope this much is clear, right? That is how you can manage the issue, okay, and try to deal with migration and make it more orderly. I hope this much is clear. Any doubts? Anything you want to ask? Trading hearts? You did not understand. See, basically, for example, what you can have is a weekly trading heart or trading post. So, you know, it's like that during these 2 days in a month or 3 days in a month or 4 days in a month, what can happen, what will happen is that both traders coming from Indian side and Bangladeshi side of the border can come to designated border areas. They don't need any permit. They can just come, buy and sell goods in these border areas, so that it becomes easier for border communities to do trade with each other. Okay, that's there. So a common market, okay, where traders from both sides can come and do trade on designated days to buy goods. Okay, so you want to sell your cows and buffaloes, you bring them on the 15th of every month to the border area in the border hut, sell it to the traders coming from the Bangladeshi side, border mein hi trade aapne kara and you leave. Okay, no need of doing illegal migration or illegal underground trade, all of that. Okay, is that much clear? Okay, now yes.
This case we see is that we should give work permit, but in India there is so much unemployment which is going on nowadays. So how could these our people allow this permit?
So, firstly, if India, you know, if India is to take a position that, you know, so his question is a very valid question that is often something that comes to people's mind, that, sir, why should we allow migrants to come when we ourselves have a problem of unemployment? You know, when there are not enough jobs for Indians themselves, why should we allow, you know, migrants from other countries to come, etc.? Well, the answer is a bit more complex. Firstly, there are two aspects to this answer. The first aspect is what? That migrants often are the ones who are doing cheap work. If they have a push factor, they are looking for employment. There is also a pull factor. See, if migrants are looking for better opportunities, you know, and in Bangladesh, if they don't have many employment opportunities, Bangladesh is largely an agrarian society. It is picking up its manufacturing sector, but it has some distance to go. And you know, when people are looking for employment opportunities, they come to India. Why? Because they get better wages here. Now, the point is that the wages that are being offered in the Indian construction sector, locals in Assam, local people from Assam are not interested in doing that work. Why? Because the wages are low. Okay, so the migrants will come. Now your question could be, sir, why then from Bangladesh? Why not from Bihar? Right? That is there. Now all these kind of questions, the other aspect of answer is this, that if India is to take an ideological, if India is to take a position that we want to stop migration from Bangladesh because we ourselves have unemployment problem, then US can say we also want to stop migration, you know, because we also have unemployment problem.
Here is politics related to this unemployment and this illegal migrants. This is the main problem, and I was asking about this. That people themselves would protest against this.
People would?
Will protest against this. Surely this will legalize.
See, the point is, yes, there can be domestic political opposition within India. There is domestic political opposition already. In Assam, there is domestic political opposition already, whether that's legal migration or illegal migration. Even their opposition is to people coming from Bengal also, from West Bengal also. In Assam, there is a stiff opposition to people coming from West Bengal also. Okay, primarily because they say that they are not the Assamese people. So part of the problem is the sons of the soil policy argument, that we are from Assam, Assam is for Assamese. Okay, so that argument is itself a problem. At the same point of time, yes, India's border states may have certain concerns, and those concerns will have to be taken into consideration, but they cannot dictate Indian foreign policy. Ultimately, if because merely of concerns of Assam, India cannot say that we are against any migration from Bangladesh, because if that is the concern, then every other country, domestic politics, there is one group or the other which says no to migrants. Okay, so it doesn't really benefit India if we try to clamp down on this migration completely. Yes, there is a certain amount of domestic backlash. The Assam's population main problem is with these people settling down here, buying property, and because when you start settling down here and you start buying property, what happens? The ethnic composition changes. If you're coming for short durations to work and going back, that won't be that great a problem. Migrants are always going to be there. Illegal migrants are a bigger problem because they get settlement rights, they get voting ID, they are buying property. That is a bigger problem. If it is more orderly migration and more legalized one, that is a better assurance against the ethnic composition changing in these areas. And remember, migration, whether that is even within the country itself, also can lead to discontent. I mean, a very common sight is in that Maharashtra. A Bihari people going to work in Maharashtra. So Maharashtra people say Maharashtra for Marathis. No to Bihari population. So what is the solution, sir? As long as there is inequality and there are push and pull factors, there will be intra-country migration and inter-country migration both. That is it. There are no easy solutions. What is argued is that better than illegal migration is legal migration. Okay, that is that. Clear? Okay. Next issue is predominantly about, so we have discussed the first two issues. The next issue is predominantly about water sharing. Okay, so let's discuss water sharing and connectivity issues first. देखिए, water sharing and connectivity issues. Why am I discussing them together? I'll explain for a reason. See, in terms of water sharing issues, what we say, is that there are a total of 54 transboundary rivers between India and Bangladesh. There are 54 transboundary rivers between India and Bangladesh, and India is the upper riparian in all the rivers. Some of the major river systems are the Ganga, on which a water sharing treaty has already been finalized in 1996 to the mutual satisfaction of both the parties. Then there are a few other rivers, the Tipaimukh, the Barak river. The Barak river flows from Manipur, okay, flows in India from Manipur into Bangladesh, and the Barak river is another major river system. Ganga river system is there, Brahmaputra river system is there, the Barak river system is there, then there is the Brahmaputra river system, then there is also the Teesta river. Now, though we have a water sharing agreement on Ganga, we don't have any agreements on any other rivers. On the Barak river, India in 2011-12, India initiated the construction of the Tipaimukh India initiated what? The construction of the Tipaimukh Dam. There is some roughly around 1000 megawatt dam that India is seeking to construct on the Barak River. But India being the upstream, India started construction on the Barak River. Bangladesh opposed the construction of the dam, saying that it could lead to flooding, or it could lead to flooding in Bangladesh also, or it could divert waters from the Barak River, which can adversely affect Bangladesh. So because of Bangladesh's opposition, India partly, or for a temporary period, India stopped the construction of this Tipaimukh Dam and assured whom? And assured Bangladesh that that the construction of the Tipaimukh Dam will not adversely affect the flow of water in Bangladesh. So India has offered assurance to Bangladesh that the construction of the dam will not adversely affect the flow of rivers, will not adversely affect the flow of water, will not adversely affect the flow of water in then the Teesta River. Now, Brahmaputra, we are not talking about Brahmaputra primarily because of the fact that Brahmaputra is partly an issue between India, is largely an issue between India and China. And Brahmaputra has not really been an issue between India and Bangladesh, primarily because of the fact that India has not yet started major construction activities on the Brahmaputra, and rather the water flow in Brahmaputra is significant. Okay, to that extent, Bangladesh doesn't expect that even, as of now, that even if India does, whatever India does on Brahmaputra may immediately or adversely affect the immediate flow of water through Brahmaputra into Bangladesh. Rather, their major concern has been over the Teesta River. Their major concern is over the Teesta River as of now. Primarily why? Because what do you see is that the Teesta River flows from, from the Sikkim region in India through northern Bengal into Bangladesh. Okay. So, Bangladesh is the lower riparian, and the Teesta River is one river which supplies irrigation, water for irrigation purposes, etc. in Sikkim, in northern Bengal and in northern Bangladesh, in all the three regions. So, you see the Teesta River, comes, from the Sikkim region through northern Bengal into Bangladesh. Now, this is the river on which the water supply from which is important for agriculture. Where? Is important for agriculture. The water supply from this river is important for agriculture. The Teesta water supply is important for agriculture in Sikkim, North Bengal and in Sikkim, in North Bengal and in Bangladesh. Now, in 1993, a provisional agreement, an interim agreement was reached between whom? Was reached between India and Bangladesh. An interim agreement was reached between India and Bangladesh. To what extent? An interim agreement was reached between India and Bangladesh. How? That the agreement was such that it said that was reached between India and Bangladesh on water sharing on the Teesta River, such that roughly around, you see that, just a second. Yes, that 39% of the water was to go to India. Some, some 39% of the water was to go to India. Some 34% of the water was to go to whom? Bangladesh. And what? The rest 25% or 26% of the water was to be left undivided for now and maintain what? Minimum flow and to maintain the minimum flow in the river. If India diverted 39% of the water, if say India diverted 50% of the water and Bangladesh also diverted the other 50% of the water, then what is left in the river? Nothing. Right. So, in the sense that what was said was that both the sides, this would be the water sharing agreement. Now, this is an interim agreement that was reached, and it was to be finalized and take a form over this undivided portion also. And for this, talks have been ongoing since after that also in 2010 and 2011 also talks were held. And an agreement was finalized. An agreement was almost finalized between India and Bangladesh. And while finalizing this agreement, even while finalizing the Ganga agreement, the Indian government, Ganga Water Sharing Treaty in 96, the Indian government had kept the Jyoti Basu government in West Bengal, had taken the Jyoti Basu government in West Bengal into confidence. Here also, when this water sharing treaty was to be signed, the Indian government was of the opinion that the West Bengal government must be fully in what? Must fully agree or must be completely on board on this water sharing agreement. Why? Sir, domestic politics. What if India went and signed this water sharing agreement, then Mamata Banerjee said that a Congress government has compromised the interest of people of West Bengal. If that happens, then Congress can forget elections in West Bengal, right? So Mamata Banerjee said that no, that this proposed water sharing agreement will adversely affect the share of water of whom? of the farmers of West Bengal. So Mamata Banerjee at the very last moment in 2010-11 said no to the agreement. Mamata Banerjee objected to this water sharing agreement, saying that it will compromise the interest of farmers of West Bengal. She said give water from some other river, not from the Tista river, like the Torsa river, Torsa, the Torsa river. Okay, so she said no, water sharing. See, water sharing is always a contentious issue, sir. When Tamil Nadu and Karnataka have yet to settle their Kaveri question, water sharing is always a contentious issue. And because of domestic political implications, if Karnataka agrees to a water sharing agreement, which is seen as benefiting Tamil Nadu more than any political party which signs such a water sharing agreement, will have to face political consequences, right? So that is why it is always a tricky issue. And Mamata Banerjee said that she cannot compromise the interests of the Bengali population or the farmers of West Bengal, and she cannot agree to such a agreement, because of which Indian government did not sign the agreement in 2011. And Sheikh Hasina said that the Tista water issue is the litmus test for the India-Bangladesh relationship, in the sense that there was intense domestic pressure on Sheikh Hasina also to demonstrate that it could get the favorable deal from India, which largely accommodate whose interest? Bangladesh interests. So, which largely accommodates what? Whose interest? Bangladesh interest. Now, which largely accommodates Bangladesh interests. So, West Bengal strongly objected to the Teesta deal and argued that it adversely affected the water share of whom? West Bengal. That adversely affected the water share of West Bengal. And since 2011 to 2017, despite repeated attempts and assurances from India, the Teesta water deal, Teesta water agreement is yet the Teesta water agreement is yet to be finalized. Okay, the Teesta water agreement is yet to be finalized, and there is intense pressure on Sheikh Hasina also, in the domestic politics of Bangladesh to get this agreement. But largely because of West Bengal's protests, and अगर ममता बनर्जी रहेंगी वेस्ट बंगाल में and बीजेपी रहेगी सेंटर में तो और ही भूल जा. Okay, so there's there, even when the Congress government was there, Mamata Banerjee did not agree. There is no reason for her to agree now. अभी तो वैसे भी महायुद्ध चल रहा है, right? So that is there. So as of now, any settlement of the Teesta question is not in sight, unless the political equation between the center and the state changes significantly. Okay, that is there. So The Teesta Water Agreement is yet to be finalized. And however, but though this agreement is yet to be finalized, there is an implication. In the sense, what is the implication of this lack of settlement on the water on the water sharing issue is that a positive movement on the Teesta water issue is likely to have what? Major implications or positive spin-offs for is likely to have positive implications, is major implications or positive spin-offs for connectivity and trade. What? For connectivity and trade agreements. Connectivity and trade or transit agreements between whom? Between India and Bangladesh. Okay, I'll explain. In the sense that what is there? See, India wants connectivity agreement or transit rights through Bangladesh, connecting West Bengal to the states like Tripura, etc. or Nagaland, which will reduce the transit time by 1/3 and decrease the dependence on the Siliguri corridor. So India wants the trade and transit rights through Bangladesh, which will improve India's connectivity between West Bengal and India's landlocked northeast, right? So India wants that to happen, and Bangladesh knows that it is their bargaining chip. Bangladesh is saying directly, indirectly, politely or not so politely, Bangladesh is saying, you give us the water sharing deal, we'll give you the connectivity. That's their bargaining chip, sir. That is what happens in diplomatic negotiations, give and take. So you give us this, we'll give you that. That is the whole logic. Now, that is the whole, logic that is to be taken care of. Okay. Now, that's the whole negotiation. So, when we talk about the connectivity issues, let me see if it is connected to the internet. No. No use. Okay. So, what is the connectivity issue? Is this. See. Now, so I'll have to draw only. The connectivity issue is this, that so the connectivity issue is what? See, from the Calcutta port what can India do is from the Calcutta port in Bangladesh, sorry. So from with respect to connectivity, what can India do is that in Bangladesh there are a number of rivers which flow into Bangladesh from India, right? Now, and there are a number of ports, there are a number of rivers which flow into Bangladesh, like the Brahmaputra which comes from the north, the Ganga which comes from the west. If you can see a better map, you will get better maps also. If my Gmail would have opened, I would have showed you the exact one. And then there are a number of other also rivers which come. Now, there is, for example, one port here, that's the Ashuganj port. Then there is another port here, that is the Chittagong port. There is another port here, okay. So you see there are a number of ports in the regions of in Bangladesh. Now what is India's argument is that what we can do is, firstly, we can transport goods, what? We can transport goods largely from Kolkata to the Ashuganj port, and from Ashuganj port we can transport through a land route which connects to Tripura. Okay. So that will allow us to move goods relatively cheaper and faster. That's one thing, partly through the sea-based route, and that's called the Kolkata Ashuganj port link, and from Ashuganj to Tripura region. That's one thing that we can do. Then we can already, India has what? India already has what? Bus service and train service running from where? India already has bus service and train service running from Kolkata to Dhaka. Okay. From Kolkata to Dhaka, India already has bus services and train services running. The Maitri Express, the Bandhan Express and bus services. Okay. And from Dhaka, we can also start other bus services to Tripura. So we can establish road, rail as well as trade connectivity links to Bangladesh. Okay. That is something that Bangladesh can give to us. In return, what will Bangladesh get, sir? In return for all of this, Bangladesh gets what? Firstly, India will provide what? India will provide financial support in the terms of grants and loans for what? For the construction of infrastructure projects in Bangladesh. What? That highways will have to be built, ports will have to be developed. India will provide loans and assistance for these projects. Secondly, when Bangladesh gives India transit rights, it benefits India by reducing the time and the cost of transport, but it also benefits Bangladesh, not just because India will provide loans and assistance for construction of infrastructure, but also because they will get what? They will get, yes, they will get transit taxes or toll taxes. So they'll get transit or toll taxes also, and that will help them develop their infrastructure. And on this highway, not just Indian goods can move, but even Bangladeshi goods. Even Bangladesh can supply more goods to India's northeast and vice versa. So that is there. It is Bangladesh can serve as a bridge for between India's West Bengal region and India's northeast. And it can also act in collaboration with what? India's Look East policy. Okay, or with things like BIMSTEC or the Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral and Technical Economic Cooperation. that the BIMSTEC, which includes Bangladesh, India, Myanmar, etc., Bangladesh can become the land link, strengthening the connectivity of India with India's northeast as well as with the India's look east policy or ASEAN member countries like Myanmar, which also share a land border with India. Is that point clear? So that is also something which is important. So this is a mutually beneficial thing. However, India is likely to get a lot of benefits from this, and to that extent, you see a positive movement on the Teesta water issue is likely to have major implications or a positive standoff for whom? The India-Bangladesh for connectivity and trade and transit between India and Bangladesh. India has already shown interest in the construction of Chittagong port in Bangladesh and the completion of the Kolkata Ashuganj multimodal transport or the multimodal transport links or the port road links along the multimodal means using different modes of transport, and a faster movement of people through the Bandhan or an Maitri Express connecting Dhaka and Kolkata. Clear? So that's there. There can be a lot of development, and Bangladesh thus can become a bridge to India's northeast. And play a vital role in India's look east policy as well. Clear? So that's an important aspect. So you see, foreign policy is not just about war. हमारे भारतीयों को बस एक ही होता है, पाकिस्तान और गोली मारो पाकिस्तान. That is all foreign policy is. Okay. But foreign policy is much more than that, right? Foreign policy is not about bus war fighting. Okay. It's about everything else but war fighting also. Okay. So that is there. Now, so if you see border issue, illegal migration, water sharing, trade issue, no, connectivity issue we have discussed, right? Now trade issue and China factor, that's all, right? So देखिए, let's start with the China factor. That's in fact the last major topic, the China factor. As always, boss है China. Okay. So, देखिए, firstly, in the domestic politics of Bangladesh, there is a certain amount of consensus. There is domestic consensus on pursuing closer relations with whom? On pursuing closer relations with whom? With China. $70 to 80% of their defense platforms or weapon systems are supplied by whom? $70 to 80% of the defense platforms or weapon systems are supplied by China. The China-Bangladesh bilateral trade today stands at roughly around $10 billion. In 2017. The figure keeps going up and down a bit. And this trade relationship is heavily balanced in favor of whom? China. China exports $9 billion worth of crude goods, whereas to Bangladesh, and Bangladesh exports roughly the remaining $1 billion to China. That's not all. (2015) Z पिक्चर के हीरो हैं ये. सर आज से सदियों बाद इनका नाम अमर होगा, जी जिनपिंग. Okay. So Z paid a visit to whom? Bangladesh. Z paid a visit to Bangladesh. And before actually, चलिए कर लेते हैं इसी बारे में. Z paid a visit to Bangladesh in 2014. Offered loans and assistance amounting to 24.5 billion US dollars. Loans or lines of credit and assistance amounting to 24.5 billion US dollars to be spent over the next 5 years. This was a visit by a Chinese president after 30 years to Bangladesh. Okay. So the first visit, first state level visit. In 2001, and they said that their partnership is a strategic partnership. In 2001, I told you that they're major defense partners anyways, right? In 2001, China and Bangladesh had also finalized a defense cooperation, what? And Xi Jinping offered lines of credit and assistance amounting to $24.5 billion to be spent over the next few years. And what is important is, over the next few years, as a part of what? The One Belt, One Road, or the Belt and Road Initiative project on what? Highways, infrastructure, and what? Highways, infrastructure, ports, including showed intention to develop the Chittagong ports, including showing intention to develop the Chittagong deep sea port. So that's there. Okay. Also in 2017, China supplied 2 Ming class submarines, diesel submarines. To whom? Bangladesh. So supplied 2 Ming class diesel submarines to Bangladesh. So all of this is telling you what? All of this is telling you that there is a closer engagement between China and Bangladesh. However, what has been India doing in this whole context? See, what about the India-Bangladesh recent advances? Sir, firstly, on the trade angle, till recently, India was what? You know, the China-Bangladesh trade I told you is $10 billion, right? And with this, China has recently overtaken India as the largest trading partner of whom? Bangladesh. China recently overtook India to become the largest trading partner of Bangladesh. So till recently, India has been a major trade partner of whom? Bangladesh. Kahan? The bilateral trade stands at what? The bilateral trade stands at what? Roughly around 8.8 to $9 billion, which is usually in whose favor? In favor of India. Where India exports what? $8 billion worth of goods, whereas India exports $8 billion worth of goods, whereas whom? Bangladesh exports to India roughly $0.8 billion of goods. So India has granted more market access. India has granted duty-free access to what are Bangladesh's chief exports? Textile. So India has granted duty-free access to Bangladeshi textile goods. Into Indian market since 2011. Next, in 2011-12, India offered a line of credit of $1 billion in 2011 and 12. Before China started taking interest under the whole Belt and Road Initiative, etc., to in Bangladesh, India had offered this as a line of credit before China came up with this huge offer of 24.5 billion US dollars. So that's one thing. Yes. लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट क्या होता है? लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट होता है लोन. ठीक है, ये लोन क्यों दिया जाता है? These loans are not unconditional loans. These loans are often conditional loans. मतलब that suppose we are promising $1 billion in a line of credit. Okay, so this is a loan which will be given say for 30-year period, has to be paid back in 30 years, often at a low interest rate. Okay. Now, in case of India, maximum हमारा interest rate 1% or so, more, not more than that, it doesn't go. So, at a low interest rate. But this loan doesn't come without any conditions. It comes for particular projects. Suppose we are giving $1 billion line of credit for infrastructure projects. So, it will be used only for construction of highways, etc. So, that's there. And when these contracts are being given, so okay, we've given to Bangladesh. Now Bangladesh is doing tendering, has open tenders to do what? To construct these highways, and is going to give contract for constructing these highways. Then more often than not, it is expected that Indian run companies will also get a share of these contracts, if not the whole contract. So these are partly conditional loans, which will help them to develop their infrastructure, but also partly will help Indian companies get what? Contracts or market in the infrastructure sector in these companies. So these are conditional loans. Clear? Okay. So a line of credit of $1 billion US. So India offered this line of credit. Then what has happened also that in 2015, I told you, we have settled the land boundary agreement. Settled the land boundary agreement. And that has been a positive development. As the Chinese have shown, interest, India has also been tightening itself, strengthening its presence, in the sense that in 2016, 15-16, India announced, in 2016-17, India announced a $5.5 billion line of credit for whom? बांग्लादेश. आप सोच रहे हैं बांग्लादेश के तो मजे हो रहे, इंडिया भी दे रहा है, चाइना भी दे रहा है, सब दे रहे हैं, right? So, sir, nobody is giving loans. There are no free lunches in the world. Okay. So, in the sense that we are giving these loans, the Bangladeshi have to pay back these loans to India. And India expects that a number of these infrastructure projects will go to partly to Indian companies, if not completely. So it's not, कि हम अपना ऐसे दिए जा रहे हैं. Okay. And these are largely loans, line of credit. मतलब it's not a grant. It's largely loans. And out of this $5.5 billion, $5 billion line of credit is for infrastructure projects which will boost connectivity. And $500 million line of credit is for defense purchases. From whom? India. In the sense that India and Bangladesh have finalized a MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding for Defense Cooperation, where India is saying, why don't you want to buy weapons from us? Buy it from us also. Okay. Or decrease the dependence on China. Okay. That's not all. India has also been doing electricity trade. With whom? Bangladesh. Already India is supplying some 600 megawatts of electricity. Bangladesh has a growing manufacturing sector and huge electricity demand. It has a growing manufacturing sector and a huge electricity demand, and there is a huge shortage of electricity in Bangladesh. 8 to 10 hour power outages are very common. So they have huge electricity shortage. India has been selling 600 megawatts of electricity from West Bengal. Already some 550 megawatts more of electricity from Tripura is also to be exported, and India is obviously gaining foreign exchange reserve, forex, from this trade. Also in the future, the whole idea of India has said that India has expressed interest that over the next 5 years, the electricity trade can be what? Doubled. Trade or supply from India can be doubled. Also, sir, what is happening? That India, Russia and whom? Bangladesh have signed the Ropur nuclear power plant project. For joint development of this power plant project, nuclear power plant project in Bangladesh. Roughly around 2,400 megawatts of electricity is likely to be generated. Russia will supply the nuclear reactors. Russia will supply the reactors. India will help in the construction and training, construction of the plants and the training of officials, of nuclear power plant officials, as India has a vast experience of running nuclear power plants, Russian made, etc. Right? So that is that. Also, don't forget the idea of the whole, a regional electricity grid. And a highway connectivity projects such as the BBIN corridor and also the regional electricity grid connecting Bangladesh with Nepal, with Bhutan, through India. So India has been engaging. Now what India only needs to communicate, and India has already done so, is that India cannot stop whose engagement, the China and Bangladesh engagement. But what India needs to do is get its act together, be more, improve their implementation of projects in Bangladesh, get its act together, improve the implementation of projects in Bangladesh, and clearly communicate to Bangladesh that Bangladesh must be mindful of Indian sensitivities on things like Chittagong, that giving this project to the Chinese is something that may have consequences for India, given that the Chinese, if they develop a deep sea port here and they base their navy in this region, then this can have security implications for India. So India needs to be more vocal also, but at the same time more proactive in terms of increasing its engagement with Bangladesh if we are to deal with a rising Chinese presence. And remember that even though the Chinese presence may, Bangladesh and China have a historical relationship, and even if the Chinese presence may increase further, India needs to know and remember that geography favors whom? India. Okay, so that is that. So even that is one factor. Is this much clear? Any other doubts till here? Anything you want to ask? Okay, so this largely completes the topic for today. Tomorrow also will start at 12 o'clock. Any problems? No problem? Okay, good. So tomorrow also will start from 12 o'clock, continue till 4:30. Tomorrow is what day? Thursday, right? So tomorrow also will start at 12 o'clock. We'll complete, just one thing, we'll complete Sri Lanka tomorrow, and then we should probably also be talking about Africa. Okay, so we'll try to do that also.